So you're looking to buy Copic markers. Before you decide to buy Copic markers, realize that they're very expensive. A set of 72 here is 422 bucks, and a set of 36 is 211 bucks. So I'll do a drawing here and I'll explain maybe the pros and cons and why you should and why you probably shouldn't buy Copic markers. So here's the drawing. I'm drawing a Velociraptor, and I'm going to draw it really fast with pencil and pen, and then we'll get to the Copic markers. First, I'll start off with some of the pros. Copic markers have been around for a long time. They're one of the best trusted markers out there, and they have a felt point and a chisel point, which is pretty awesome. Felt point is great for getting detail work, and the chisel point is great for filling in mass color. They have a great color selection. They've been around for a long time. And my favorite is being able to use grayscale markers. That's something I never really had, and I always use grayscale markers to begin my drawing for all the shadow parts, and then I add color over the top, which kind of adds a layer of depth that you can't get with like Crayola markers, so let's say. So alcohol markers are, I would say, superior. The Copic marker brand is one of the top. So that is probably the best part about Copic is they're well known, and the other part is they have refills. So when I was buying markers when I first started, that's what drew me to Copic markers. So you can buy other comparable markers, alcohol markers that is, and they won't have the ability to refill like you see here. So when you refill a marker, the refill costs about as much as one marker. So one marker roughly costs close to about $6, depending on where you're getting it. The refill costs $6, but the refill can fill your marker probably maybe 4 to 5 times. So once you buy the markers, your cost per refill, if you buy the refills, becomes cheaper over time. So that's what really drew me to Copic markers to begin with. And that's why I spent, when I bought them, they were around 340 bucks. So inflation has taken a toll on these guys, just like it has everything else. But it is a big commitment to get into Copic markers. So before you decide to go into Copic markers, here are some of the cons. So one of the major cons is obviously the price of the marker. I mean, at $6 a marker, that's pretty ridiculous. But they are pretty awesome markers. But I would say that you probably will never use, at least at the beginning, most of the markers in like that 72-piece set. So I would save your money and maybe buy a couple markers. Buy the little kit that I had at the beginning with the grayscale markers, and maybe buy some colored markers. But even that little, whatever, 6-piece set, I think it was like 45 bucks. So that's not cheap either. So I would try out alcohol markers and see if you really like alcohol markers in general, with a different brand, maybe like Ohulu or maybe even like a Hobby Lobby brand or whatever Michael's brand marker. Just try out alcohol markers and see if you really, really love the alcohol markers, then venture into Copic. I kind of did the deep dive and just went straight into Copic thinking I want to get the best marker and I just want to start with the best. Didn't really need that. It's nice that I have them now. When I bought them, I had the ability to purchase them and I had the thought process. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this for a long time. I want to be able to refill them and it's going to save me in the long run. Well, it turns out Ohulu has a refillable alcohol marker at like half the price. So if that was around when I was buying, I probably wouldn't have went with them. But since I've pot committed with Copic, I've stuck with them. But another thing to consider is if marker drawings are something you are thinking about selling, well, I don't know if there's a huge price markup for marker drawings. Yes, your Copic markers are expensive, but people buying artwork don't really realize that Copic markers cost so much. So if you're trying to sell somebody a marker drawing, they're going to probably undervalue it as they would like a pencil sketch. It still has value, trust me, but um, people are more inclined to spend a lot more money on a painting because they see the money in the value of a painting more so than a marker drawing. The common person doesn't realize that you spent $400 on a set of markers. So, unless you somehow can convey that this is an expensive material, it's kind of hard to sell it. Another thing to consider is what kind of paper do you need to use when you're drawing with Copic markers? I have been using computer paper because I didn't really value my drawings too much. I know they're pretty good, but I know computer paper is not really archival, so I feel guilty if I ever tried to sell any of them. I do this more as a sketchbook for myself. But if I do sell a marker drawing, I will use smooth Bristol board paper. Now, that can get expensive too. So like you're spending more money on higher quality paper to draw with these higher quality markers. So at the end of the day, the consumer who's buying your marker drawing, if they don't realize all the amount of money you're spending on the materials to make the artwork, they're going to value it low because they think it's just the same as something that comes off the printer. Um, yeah. Another con that I never even thought of when I bought them is if you do not use the markers for a long enough time and they start to dry out, sometimes if they dry out too much, you cannot just rehydrate them with new ink. You have to buy a new marker. So the ink refill then becomes pointless. Another thing is if you overfill the marker, and there's no way to really tell that you have overfilled it unless you have a scale and you weigh a marker that's brand new and you measure it when you fill it. And if you overfill it, sometimes what will happen is while you're drawing, all of a sudden you'll have an ink explosion and it'll come out of the tip and a bunch of ink will shoot out and therefore ruining your drawing. This has happened to me a bunch early on. So Copic markers can be very finicky, very tough to work with if you're reusing them over and over again. But if you take proper care of them and you have a scale and you understand their worth, they can be awesome. I've been using them for years now. Hopefully, if you're on the fence of buying Copic markers, either for your son or daughter or for yourself, hopefully I pushed you over the fence one way or the other. I mean, Copic markers are great, and I think there's competitors out there that are just as good, and I'd love to try them out someday, but right now I'm stuck with Copic. That doesn't mean you have to be. But if you buy Copic, it's not a bad thing either. I mean, like I said, they're one of the best trusted markers out there. A lot of people in the industry love them. They use them. I use them all the time. I'm going to continue using them, but I do want to try out a few different other alcohol markers just so I'm not stuck. And if you like what you have seen here, please consider hitting the like and subscribe button. I'm trying to grow my channel, and it really helps. Thanks for watching.